ABC, what's going on? I know it's been a couple weeks since I actually put a vinyl video up. Haven't been doing much vinyl shopping as of lately. I'm coming up on vacation, so I'm sort of saving up for my vacation. There's one really special vinyl item I ordered online, so I'm waiting for that in the mail. And that's going to be a happy day when that comes here, but that'll be for another video. Okay, so I'm just going to show a small stack of vinyl from the last dig I did, probably about a week and a half ago or so. And here we go. First one is Rush 2112. This is the reissue that came out about a week and a half to 2 weeks ago. My last video, I filmed the record spinning while playing a song because it has this really cool hologram design in the dead wax, and it looks really cool. And you shine a light on it while it's spinning, and you can see the star rotating as the record's rotating. Pretty cool what they can do with records now. So I mean, I more or less got it for that. More or less, because well, I'm easily amused with those things. But it's a great sounding reissue. It's on 200 gram vinyl, and it's just absolutely badass. It just sounds killer. And I got a great used vinyl copy of 2112, but the reissues are cool to have. And it is on the old Mercury label. I guess you can kind of see the stars there. It looks better when it's spinning, so if you want to see it spinning, just refer to my last video and you'll see it. But like I said, sounds great. This is a classic album. Everybody loves all Rush fans love 2112. This will probably be the last reissue I get until Moving Pictures comes out. So I do want that one. I didn't want to collect every Rush reissue, just my favorite albums. I got this. Fly By Night is also in the collection. And I'm just going to wait till Moving Pictures comes out and grab that one. Probably Exit Stage Left as well. And of course, I got to have Moving Pictures because I love that album. But these reissues really do sound good for those who aren't able to collect every Rush album. The reissues are really great to have. They sound fantastic, so really happy for that. This next record would fall under the category of I don't really need it, but I bought it anyway. It's Genesis Foxtrot. Absolutely classic progressive rock album from the early 70s. Genesis, back when Peter Gabriel was still singing for the band. I already got 2 copies of this album. So, why buy a third? What's the point? But this one is one of those rare Charisma Pink Scroll labels that I don't come across too often. So this one was a pink scroll. The record was nice and clean. The cover was in good shape. It came with the original inner, as you can see here. And it was only like $4. So for $4 I could have a pink scroll. I already have a pink scroll in the collection. I was going to throw this record back, but hey, how often do you see a pink scroll out there on vinyl, even though I can just go to my collection and look at one? It's hard to pass these things up. And this is a great album, some fantastic music on it. Watchers of the Sky, Supper's Ready, Horizon. There's just some great stuff on this album. So yeah, it had to go in my collection. So now here it is. The unneeded but always wanted Foxtrot Pink Scroll. Really nice. Okay, this I've never seen before, so I was really happy to have tracked this one down. It's a 12-inch single from INXS for the song Shining Star. Shining Star was a studio track that was on their live record, Live Baby Live. So it's one of the rare studio tracks on that album. Apparently it was released as a single. I never knew that. So really cool to have this. And it's a gatefold single, so there's the gatefold for it. Pretty cool. And it is on the Atlantic label. There they are, so Atlantic label there. So Shining Star is actually a pretty cool song, real funky sounding, so I dig that track. But what's cool about this collection there's 3 other tracks on here, and they're all live recordings. Send a Message, and on the B-side, Faith in Each Other and Bitter Tears, all live tracks taken from the Live Baby Live live recording album. Now I have that album on vinyl, and that's a song with a lot of tracks on, an album with a lot of tracks on it. And I think there's something like 17 songs, 15 songs on it, something like that, and they squeeze it all on a single record. And to get any decent volume out of it, you really got to crank the living hell out of the record while it's playing, just to get a decent sound out of it. The levels are so low on it. It's not the best sounding live recording I have on vinyl. The band sounds great on it, of course, but as far as sound quality, not the best. But on here, these 3 songs taken from that live album sound great because they're not squashed into a tiny little groove here. So yeah, so the tracks are a lot louder, the levels are a lot better on here. And when I listen to this, especially the song Bitter Tears, live version sounds so much better on here than it actually does on the official Live Baby Live album. So really cool to have that. I'm assuming this is an import from the UK, because I don't recall this ever being a single in the US, but I could be wrong. But really cool to have the 12-inch single from Shining Stars and INXS. Alright, the next couple albums are a bit strange, because I collect strange things every now and then. God forbid I just collect music on vinyl and be happy with it. I'm a big fan of 80s radio shows that featured a band on their weekly show. I listen to a lot of podcasts online because they still kind of do that. And it's fans that put these podcast shows together. So it's really nice to see. But back when the major radio stations were doing that, especially when they were my favorite bands being featured that week, I remember listening to it as a teenager on the radio. The fun of listening to radio back in the 80s. I really miss that because I have no joy listening to radio now. So I'm going to show you some radio shows that are put on vinyl that actually feature some of my favorite bands. This is a 2-album set. Oh, and just a regular. They all have just the regular white label, but it's from NBC Radio Broadcasting and Entertainment. And this is a radio show they did back in 1986, May of '86, for Rush. And the album that Rush was promoting at the time was Power Windows. So they did a whole, probably hour show, probably longer than an hour show actually. And the profile was on Rush and songs from the moving Power Windows record, along with some interview from the guys in the band. And of course they would segue into the song. And some of the classic songs on here too, like Spirit of Radio and Close to the Heart, Free Will and Tom Sawyer, Limelight, New World Man. Also have Subdivisions, Distant Early Warning, Red Sector A. These are all studio tracks. I think the only live one was Spirit of Radio. I'm not Close to Heart. They played the live version of that one, but the rest were studio tracks. Manhattan Project Territories, Mystic Rhythms. What's great is how they segue from the music to the interview, asking the guys in the band, of course, how they formed, history of the band, how the music was written, their views on touring. Really cool radio show. Me being a big Rush fan and all, it was really fun to listen to this. I'll just show you one of the labels because they all have the same label. Just a generic white NBC radio label. And they said the release dates, the broadcast dates were May 23rd, 24th, 25th, and 26th of 1986. And Power Windows is like one of my favorite Rush albums because I love the keyboard era of that band. I found that music to be really interesting, really exciting to listen to. And to find an old radio show from back in the day on 2 records, there's 2 records, was a big find for me. I was real excited when I found this, and real excited when I spun it. I had a great time listening to this. I actually love listening to radio interviews on vinyl. It's cool. This next one is from Triumph. And just another plain white cover. It's unspectacular to look at. It was, the show was called the Robert Klein Radio Show. Now, Robert Klein was a stand-up comedian in the 70s and 80s. He had a lot of comedy specials on HBO back in the 80s. And I forgot how funny he was and how much I liked him growing up, you know, when my family just got cable TV, and I was seeing all these stand-up comedians from Catch a Rising Star and the Improv. Robert Klein had a lot of specials on HBO back then. I had no idea he had a radio show. And on his radio show, he featured the band Triumph from Canada. And it's an interview, and same with the Rush one. It's an interview and it segues into music. And the album they were promoting at the time was Allied Forces. So you get a lot of songs from Allied Forces on this record, which is another favorite album of mine from Triumph. That's a great album. And I'll just show you the label, The Robert Klein Show, featuring Triumph. There was another guest on here, a film director from the 80s, and I forgot the guy's name. Shame on me. And it's not on the label anywhere. But a great interview with Triumph, because it's Robert Klein. He puts a lot of comedy into the interview, so it's not a serious musician's interview. He does crack a lot of jokes, and I could tell I listened to Triumph because Rick Emmett and Mike Levine were the only ones in the interview. And they were joking right back with them. It was cool to see the humor in the band. You know it exists, but you don't get to see it that often. They were cracking a lot of jokes during this interview. It was a loose interview, and it was in front of a live audience as well. So this was really cool to listen to. It just took me back to the day of watching Robert Klein on HBO, his HBO special. So that was fun. The last one is for In Excess. Again, a boring white copy cover. In Excess, back in 84, 85, I believe. There's no date on this. But the name of the radio show was the Jim Ladd Radio Show, hosted by Jim Ladd. And at the time, they were promoting the album Listen Like Thieves. So it's interview footage from Tim Ferriss and Michael Hutchence. And they're just doing interviews about the history of the band, how they all met, the writing of the songs, any rituals within the studio, and their views on touring. And it segues away into all the radio cuts from that album, like What You Need, Listen Like Thieves, Shine Like It Does, This Time. Some good songs, and it was a good interview, actually. I learned a lot about the band I didn't know before, and there's the label from the Jim Ladd Show, featuring In Excess. It was really cool to listen to that. I'm a big In Excess fan. I love them. I collect their vinyl and CD as well. And I was a huge fan back in those days. I think Listen Like Thieves album was like the first album that really hooked me from In Excess. And the song was What You Need. I really love that song. And so this was a very interesting interview to listen for me, because when I was about 14, that's about when I really got into the band heavily. And then the album after that was Kick, and I was a huge fan after that. So those are the radio show vinyl records that I got. Okay, these next two, again, have nothing to do with music. Lately, I've been going online and listening to a lot of stand-up routines from the comedian Richard Pryor. He is by far my favorite stand-up comedian. If you're as old as I, you can remember back in the 70s and early 80s, Richard Pryor was a megastar. That man was everywhere, and every time I saw him either on Saturday Night Live or HBO or his movies, it was a huge thing, because the guy was like the funniest stand-up comedian I've ever heard. And so I scored a couple of his records, because I noticed I don't collect comedy albums that much. I have one Cheech and Chong album. And I thought, well, Pryor was my favorite comedian. Might as well look for his vinyl, and I found this one. Wanted, Richard Pryor. This came out in 1978. It actually is the audio from a stand-up performance he did in Long Beach, California. And it was actually released in the theaters. I remember as a kid, my parents took me to it. Took the whole family to it. I mean, as a kid, maybe you don't get a lot of the sexual and jokes and the jokes about drug taking, but kids like Richard Pryor too, and they found him just as funny as adults did. So, and I was only 8 years old at the time. I kind of was listening to this thinking, God, I can't believe I was an 8-year-old kid watching this movie in the theater with my folks and my family, but it was a funny stand-up. I still laughed just as hard as they did. I didn't get all the jokes, but anyway, it was a great concert, and on the Warner Brothers label. So really great stand-up. There's some amazing material on here. Really good. And then, of course, years later, Richard Pryor would struggle with substance abuse, and we all know the story of him lighting himself on fire, nearly killing himself. When he healed up, he got back into stand-up and released another concert film of his stand-up in the theaters, and it was called Richard Pryor Live on the Sunset Strip. This is the record to that film, and the film is just him doing a stand-up in Los Angeles, California. I believe it was at the Palladium. I've never been inside a Palladium. I drove past it a bunch of times every time I went to Hollywood, but I actually never actually went inside, and you know, I vacationed last year to Hollywood, so seeing pictures like that really brings back my memories of going to Hollywood. I'm going to be going there next month. I can't wait. Anyway, this also is a great comedy album. Really funny stuff here. He gets into his freebasing problem and getting all burnt up. Jokes about the mafia, prison, Africa. Then he does his character Mudbone. Really good stuff. And this is also on the Warner Brothers label. Oh, upside down, but there it is. So really great stuff. I enjoyed this copy so much, and it's a gold stamp from what that means anyway. Probably not, but and it has the original hype sticker on it. It just says all new material. This was a big album. This was a big film too. I remember I went with my brothers to see this in the movies, and I think it came out in '83, I believe, or '82, '83, and I was 12 when this movie came out, and a little older now. I got most of the jokes. I don't think I knew what freebasing was back then. I'm only 12. How am I gonna know that? But great memories of Richard Pryor. Anyway, those are the comedy albums I picked up. Anyway, that's going to do it, folks. That was my dig. Not much music-wise, but a different type of dig. Some different types of records on this one. And, hey, listen to that. Summer Nights by Van Halen. It's starting to feel a lot like summer here in Northern California. This weekend, the weather was like 85 degrees, and it was really nice outside. And I spent the whole weekend outside, just getting some sunlight and just chilling out in the sunlight. It was nice. All right, well, I hope everyone had a great weekend, and I will see you at the next video, folks. Take care.